Okay, moving on. Somebody said, how will I know when it's time to move in with my partner? How do we learn to live together when the time comes? To be honest, I don't know if there ever is the perfect time for anything in life. There is no such thing as the perfect time. I mean, I think there are times that are maybe a bit more favorable, but again, it's like defining that, knowing when it is the perfect time, it's kind of impossible. But I will say, I think it's a safe bet to move in together. Once you've been together for a significant chunk of time, you're really familiar with one another. You know the good, bad, and the ugly about each other, and you've learned to accept the good and the bad and the ugly. You've played house a lot over the years where, you've slept over at their house for the weekend, then they've slept over at yours. You've realized what it's like to live with them, and it doesn't scare you away. And ultimately, you have plans to combine your lives together in one way or another, or potentially start a family. I think at that point, it makes sense to move in together. Once you're really familiar with one another, you know each other really well, you know the good and the bad and the ugly, and you have a future plan. So it makes sense to move in together because you're nearing that point in life. You know what I mean? I think that, there are occasions when couples will move in together, perhaps younger than maybe ideal, depending on, if it makes sense financially, or if you've talked to other people that maybe you'd be roommates with and it didn't really go well. And you're like, well, will you just be my roommate? Like, and that might work out totally fine too. You might move in on a whim and it might end up wonderfully. But I will say, if that can be avoided, I would avoid it. To be honest, I think living alone in your 20s, if possible, can be a really awesome experience. And again, it's not always realistic, but I think if you can, why not? Or not even necessarily living alone, but just not living with your partner. I think it's important for both individuals in a relationship to build their own lives and their own identities separately before coming together and combining lives through potentially getting married, potentially building a family, living together, being partners indefinitely, till divorce do you part. I'm actually not that pessimistic about marriage necessarily, but I don't know, the more time you can have before you potentially spend the rest of your lives together, the more time you have to experience things on your own as a young person, develop your sense of self, develop your sense of individuality, have a sense of autonomy and freedom to go explore the world as a young person. The more time you have to do that before you fully settle down, I think the better, because then you have you're bringing two fully formed human beings together who have lived lives of their own and are now coming together as fully formed adults to make something bigger and better. But if you move in too soon, too young, it's very easy to start doing everything together, to become, potentially even codependent, because when you love somebody, you want to be around them all the time. And if you live together, it's like, well, why don't we just do everything together? Yay! And that can become toxic potentially. If you don't live together, you have space. You can, develop yourself separately a bit more. I don't know. Listen, I might be wrong about this. I've never lived with a partner. I don't need to do that necessarily anytime soon. I don't think I'm ready to be honest. I mean, I'm 24. I'm not ready to do that. Could I? Sure, I could. But I think it would be healthier for me not to until maybe I'm like in the later half of my 20s. You know what I mean? I don't know. We'll see. Anywho, to wrap that up, I would say wait as long as you can. And yeah, I think the answer is wait as long as you can. And every single adult in my life that I've ever talked to about this topic has said the same thing. But I've come to that conclusion on my own as well, because there was periods of time when I was younger where I was like, I want to live with my boyfriend. And my family was like, no. They're like, no, 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 no. That's a bad idea.